Hi, I'm Chris Cichon. I'm one of two head coaches for WAKO Team USA Kickboxing, and I want to give you an introduction into WAKO Kickboxing rules and scoring. So first, let's talk about what is WAKO. WAKO stands for the World Association of Kickboxing Organizations, and it is the largest international governing body for the sport of kickboxing in the world. It's made up of 147 different national federations and has over 250,000 active members. WAKO is the only organization that is recognized by the International Olympic Committee for the sport of kickboxing, and that means WAKO is leading the way to one day hopefully have kickboxing featured in the Olympics. My goal for this video is to give coaches, athletes, and fans a better understanding about WAKO rules and how competitions are scored. We're also going to talk about the cumulative scoring system that's used in WAKO and about the open scoring system they use, where you can see in real time who's winning the fight at any moment during the fight. I'm also going to show a sample kickboxing fight that's going to really clearly show you exactly what Judge 1, Judge 2, Judge 3 is seeing and what they're recognizing with the open scoring system as the fight goes on. So next, let's talk about scoring and why WAKO scoring is different than what most athletes are accustomed to when they compete here in the United States. So first, let's talk about the scoring criteria. For a technique to be scored under WAKO rules, it needs to meet 5 different pieces of criteria. Number 1 is going to be good form or good technique. Best example I can give of this is imagine like you're throwing a cross. They want to see that cross hitting with the first 2 knuckles. If you're throwing that punch and you're slapping with it, you're hitting with your fingers or the palm of your hand, even if it lands a really significant shot, it's not going to be scored. So they're looking for a good technique, good form in all the techniques that are being scored. The second is going to be vigorous power or speed. So they want to see you throwing a technique with intent. They want to see some force behind it. If you're just touching or snapping that jab and it's really not doing much, the jabs are not going to be scored on the scoreboard. But if you're throwing that cross with power, if you're throwing that leg kick with intent, there's a much better chance that it gets counted. Next is going to be awareness. So this is, you got to be looking at your opponent. You have to be looking at your target while you throw something. If you're going, for example, for a spinning back fist and you're throwing it and you're not really committed all the way around, maybe your back is still facing your opponent, maybe you're not looking at the target, they're not going to count that scoring technique. If you're ducking out of the way and you're throwing kind of a Hail Mary, kind of overhand right, but you got your eyes closed and you're looking away from your opponent, it's not going to score. So they're looking for your focused intent as well as that vigorous power that you're throwing into the technique. The next is going to be good timing or application of your distance. So again, going back to my example of the cross, if you throw a cross where you have that full extension, where you're able to rotate your shoulders, rotate your hips, and hit with that long punch, it's going to obviously give you way more power than if somebody's coming in and you're throwing a short, little tiny jammed up punch on the inside. They're not going to score that short little one because you weren't able to throw it from proper distance, giving you that proper technique and that proper timing. And lastly, just a good sporting attitude. For example, if you're listening to the referee, if they yell stop or break, you're going to be following directions and stopping and breaking. They're not going to count any kind of low kicks or punches that are scored after the word break. The same thing applies to if your opponent falls down. Let's say in the middle of an exchange, your opponent hits the ground or their knee or their hand touches the ground. They're not going to score a kick or a punch that lands during that time. So what doesn't score? One of the big ones is partially or fully blocked techniques. So if there's a kick coming at me and I block that kick with my arms, it's not going to score. If I even partially block it, let's say I block the kick with my arms, but it slips underneath and gets my body, that kick will not score. Same thing goes for if I'm parrying or catching like a punch and it kind of slips through my glove and still makes contact with my head because I was able to partially defend or partially deflect that punch. It's not going to score under WAKO criteria. It's also not going to score if you're not throwing full power or full intent into that technique. You need to really commit to that punch or commit to that kick to have it score. Also not going to be counting kicks or punches that kind of just glance or kind of skim off the surface. So if you throw a kick that kind of just brushes my body, it's not going to score under WAKO rules. And lastly, if you're losing the balance, you're not going to have your technique scored. They want to see punches and kicks with good solid balance before, during, and after the technique as well. So you can't be throwing a punch and having your feet lifting off the ground. You can't be throwing a kick as you're falling over. Those ones are not going to count at all under WAKO rules. So a big adjustment our U.S. athletes have to make is with the scoring system that's used internationally for WAKO. So most of our U.S. athletes kind of learn under the 10-9 must system. That's where the winner of the round gets 10 points and the loser of the round gets 9 points or less. And with this scoring system, in 3 rounds, you can win the first 2 rounds and that fight is pretty much yours unless you get knocked down or knocked out. It doesn't work that way with WAKO. WAKO utilizes a cumulative scoring system. So each round is scored, but the total is based as a whole of the entire fight, not just one round independently. That means, in theory, you could lose the first round by a little bit, lose the second round by a little bit, and you could have a great third round, and you could win the whole fight very easily. So the way it's going to work is at a WAKO scored bout, the 3 judges are still going to score their fight independently from each other, but each of them will have their own controller, where they get to press a red or a blue button for the score that they see coming from the red corner or the blue corner. And at the end of the fight, the 3 judges are basically voting on who they thought won that match. So if all 3 judges scored the fight the same way, going to the blue corner, the blue would win that fight unanimously. If 2 judges had it for blue, 1 judge had it for red, then it'd be a split decision. And if 2 judges had it for one person and 1 judge had it as a draw, then it'd be a majority decision. In the case of a draw after 3 rounds of competition, the winner goes to the fighter that scored the most points in the 3rd round. The judges are going to be scoring these techniques with a pretty simple scoring structure. Basically, any technique is going to count for the exact same amount. They're all going to be 1 point. So if I throw any punch to the head or the body with the good criteria, I'm going to get that 1 point. If I throw any kick, whether it's to the head or the body or the leg, whether I'm on the ground or I'm jumping with my kick, they will all score 1 point. If I score any knee, whether it's a jumping knee or a standing knee, whether it goes to the body or the head, those will all score 1 point. The one exception is you're going to get 2 points in the case of a knockdown. So if I throw a legal scoring technique with good form, good intent, good power, that also scores a knockdown, I will be rewarded 1 point for that technique, and then an additional 1 point, almost like a bonus point, for scoring the knockdown. So again, this is a big difference than what our U.S. athletes are used to with the 10-9 must system. Usually back home, if you score a knockdown, it's almost always an automatic 10-8. So if you get a knockdown just once in a fight, that's going to make it very, very hard for your opponent to come back from. But in WAKO rules, it's just that 1 additional point for that knockdown. So keep in mind, you can knock an opponent down and you got to keep fighting. You got to keep that pressure on them the rest of the fight because that person can bounce back pretty easily. So next I want to introduce you to the WAKO scoreboard. So at all these WAKO fights, there's going to be multiple TVs positioned around the exterior of the ring. They usually have 2 giant televisions that are facing towards the fans, which makes it for a really good event because as a fan, you can come up to a ring and not even know who's competing, and very quickly you can see what country they're fighting from, you can see how much time is left in the clock, you can see what round it is, and you can see who's winning that fight in real time. I really think personally this is a very exciting style to have. So let's kind of talk about the format or the layout of the scoreboard. At the very top, you're going to see what rule style it is, whether it's K1 or low kick rules. You're going to see what bout number it is. You're also going to see what the weight class is. In this case, it's minus 67 kilograms. Below that, you're going to see the name of both fighters that are competing. You're going to see in the color which team they're coming from, whether it's Team Serbia in this case in the red corner or Team Russia in the blue corner. And then at the bottom, you're going to see this giant white numbering, which is going to be the running time clock. In this situation, the time is out to 0, but usually that will start with the 2 minutes and it'll kind of tick its way down all the way to 0, so you can see exactly how much time is left on the clock. Now, if you look at the very bottom bar, you're going to see the 3 different judges and how each judge is scoring this fight independently. In this example that we're showing, judge number 1 has this bout scored even, a draw right now, 2 points apiece. Judge 2 has this bout scored 4-1, going in favor of the red corner. Judge 3 has this bout scored 2-1 in favor of the red corner as well. And you can see that they're Judge 2 and Judge 3 are both kind of highlighted in red to show that they've got red as the advantage. Now when you're watching this quickly, because on top of just having the TVs around the ring, they've also got the TVs in the corner by the red corner and blue corner. So as a coach, I can look down and I can see exactly in real time what the score is. And I can also watch that TV screen to kind of get an idea for what techniques are scoring from my fighter and what techniques are scoring against my fighter too. I can see that, hey, when you're throwing body punches, they're not getting counted. We got to change our game plan up. Let's do more of our punches to the head. Let's focus more on low kicks. Or I can say that, hey, when they're throwing those low kicks at you, they're moving your leg, they're being scored every time. We got to hold our balance better. We need to check those low kicks better. So you can see as a coach what techniques are scoring, what are not. You can see what's getting scored on you, what's not. Now, when you're kind of watching this stuff in fast time, you don't always have time to look at the Judge 1, Judge 2, Judge 3, and see exactly what the total score is. So right in the middle of the screen, it actually shows with those little red dots the point margin. So the 3 lines that all go vertical, the top line is for Judge 1, the middle line is for Judge 2, and the bottom line is for Judge 3. Now again, Judge 1 has it a draw, so there's no dots on either side of that top line for Judge 1. The second judge has a 3-point margin right now. The score is 4-1. So there's 3 dots on the red side kind of highlighted in red. So right now Judge 2 is really clearly showing he's got a 3-point advantage for the red corner. Now if the red corner scores another point, you're going to see a 4th dot got added. If the blue corner hits a point, you're going to see one of those dots taken away. And if the blue corner lands a couple more points consecutively, you're going to see those dots start to appear on the right side in the blue highlighted color. And then again, Judge 3 just has a 1-point advantage right now. That's signaled just by 1 dot on that bottom white line that's going vertical. Next up on the left side, we've got this big red 2, and we got a big blue 0. That shows exactly how many judges are basically voting for the fighter who's winning that fight. So in this situation, again, there's 2 judges right now that have the advantage to red. That's why there's a 2 there. There's 0 fighters that have the advantage to blue right now, which is why there's a 0 on that side. If Judge 1 were to score the next point for blue, and there was a 1-point advantage, you would see that blue 0 turn into a blue 1. But if Judge number 1 scored the next point for red, you would see the advantage go on the red side, and you would see a 3 pop up as that red number 3 on the side, showing that all 3 judges are voting right now for that red corner winning the fight. So at the end of the fight, they're looking to see where that advantage is. Do you have a unanimous decision with 3 judges going the same way? Do you have a split decision with 2 judges going to one side and 1 going to the other? And again, in the case of a draw, the winner of the 3rd round, whoever got the most points in the 3rd round, will win that fight. Now below those big giant numbers, that 2 and the 0 you see there, you're also going to see being recorded how many knockdowns, if any, are scored, how many official warnings, if any, were warned to the fighter for an illegal foul or illegal technique, and how many minus points were taken away if a foul was committed that was so severe that points were deducted from the scorecard. So now that we understand what techniques are scored and which ones are not, and also how the scoreboard works during open scoring and cumulative scoring for WAKO events, let's take a look at a sample fight. So this is a fight that took place in 2018 at the WAKO European Championships under K1 rules. And what's special about this recording or this video is you can actually see a little split screen in the top right corner of the scoreboard. It makes it really helpful to be watching the fight and see exactly what's going on at the same time. Now, personally, I find it's very hard to watch the action and watch the scoreboard simultaneously. So what I've done is I've actually added some color bars that show up on the screen whenever a point gets awarded. So the way it's going to work is whenever Judge 1 scores a point for red or blue, you're going to see a red or blue bar pop up along the left-hand side of the screen next to the ring. When Judge 2 awards a point for red or blue, you're going to see a red or blue bar pop up on the bottom of the screen. And when Judge 3 scores a point for red or blue, you're going to see a bar pop up on the right side of the screen. This makes it really easy for you to watch the fight in real time and see when a leg kick is scored, see who awards that point. Now, if you're kind of watching both of them, the bars that I kind of added on the side of the screen are not going to time up precisely with that scorecard in the top right-hand corner. The reason for that is, judges are all human. They watch a technique get scored, They have to then recognize it, press the correct color, red or blue on their controller, and it goes through, it gets added to the scorecard. So there's naturally going to be a little bit of a time delay. After a kick gets scored, maybe there's a second, maybe 2 seconds before you see in that scoreboard. But again, that time delay makes it very hard for you to watch this fight and get a clear picture of how techniques are scored. So I've kind of timed the bars that pop up along the left, the right, the bottom, simultaneously with when that kick or that punch or that knee is actually landing. That way, as soon as that technique lands and you see it, you're going to see that bar flash immediately, so you know exactly when that technique is counted versus a technique that doesn't get counted. I want you to really watch for how picky judges are when they're scoring these fights. So if you were actually to go through like the entire first round, I bet you could probably count 15, 20, maybe even 30 techniques that you think were landed effectively in this fight. But WAKO scoring judges are very, very selective. They're very, very choosy. In most rounds, they probably score 4 or 5 rounds or 4 or 5 points total for either fighter. So they're very picky. You got to have a strong technique. It's got to have good form. It's got to have good balance. It's got to have good effectiveness for it to get counted by any of the WAKO judges. You're also going to see sometimes that maybe only one judge scores a particular technique. Maybe 2 judges, maybe even all 3 of them score. It's going to be different from time to time. Keep in mind that each judge has a different perspective. We're watching this fight from one angle. From a different angle, maybe you can't see a kick or a punch land cleanly to the body. Or again, some judges maybe put their emphasis on certain things. Maybe one judge, we're all human, maybe has more of a bias towards proper technique than a different judge does. Maybe one judge has more bias on power and effectiveness and balance than a different judge does. That's why you are going to see that, as you're watching the scoring, the judges are not always seeing the exact same thing from their vantage point, but that's okay. Usually, they're all in the end scoring the fight the same way for the correct person. So now that we know what to look for, let's take a look at the sample bout from the 2018 European Championships. closing, I really want to have all WAKO athletes and WAKO coaches educate themselves as much as possible for what you're going to see under this WAKO style of competition. Over the years that I've been a part of WAKO, we've brought some amazing athletes overseas. We've done very, very well. But one of the biggest things I've heard afterwards, and it kind of, looking back on it, it kind of upsets me a little bit, is I have athletes tell me afterwards a little bit of an excuse of why they lost. You know, they kind of say, well, I would have won that fight back in the U.S. I would have won that if it was a 10-9 must system scoring. I would have won that fight if I understood the rules better or understood the scoring system differently. I firmly believe that should never happen. It is our responsibility as coaches and as athletes to understand the WAKO rules 100%. Yes, we are going over there. We're going to compete under a different scoring system that's not quite popular here in the U.S., but that's not their fault. That's our responsibility to adapt to those rule styles and train the right way, prepare the right way, and have an understanding of the rules that we can go out there and perform at the level we need to be successful. So I hope this video helps to give everybody a clear understanding of these rules and the scoring techniques and what you can expect to be scored and what's not going to be scored. I also expect all of our athletes and our coaches having this understanding to be able to go out there, fight hard, fight to the best of their ability, compete honorably, and represent our country the very best way possible. Just want to finish up here. Join WAKO USA. We are helping to build WAKO in the United States to help make our team bigger and stronger, to be able to compete on an international stage with the best fighters, the best athletes, the best coaches, the best gyms we can possibly partner with. Right now we're doing a special membership drive. If you go to the link right here, you can become a member of WAKO USA for free. We've got special memberships set up for both athletes, coaches, gyms, family, and even fans, people that are supporting the sport who may not be directly involved with it. So go to that link, become a WAKO USA member, help support our cause as we push to get WAKO into the U.S. Olympic Committee. And lastly, if you're looking for more kickboxing focused training tips and drills, I invite you to visit fightingformula.com. It's a company I'm working with that wants to help expand kickboxing around the country and help push this Olympic movement that we're going for to get kickboxing into the Olympics. So check us out, and we've got all sorts of information on there to help you advance your career as either an athlete or as a coach or a gym owner in the sport of kickboxing. Look forward to seeing you guys soon. Thank you.